final part of the circulatory system is the lymphatic system. This is the system that makes up the body's immune system. First, we talk about lymph. This is the fluid that fills space around body's cells and is what lymphocytes travel through, similar to what plasma is to blood. Lymphocytes are specialized white blood cells that protect the body by attacking pathogens and providing the body with immunity. This is done with the use of two types of cells, B cells and T cells. B cells begin to multiply when they come into contact with a pathogen. Some of the B cells create plasma, which creates antibodies to attack the pathogen. Other B cells form memories, which provide immunity if a similar pathogen is encountered in the future. This is how vaccines work. Vaccines, they introduce a dead pathogen, the B cells attack it, create a memory, and so when that type of pathogen is encountered again, the immune system responds more quickly and is able to fight it off more easily. The other type of cell is a T cell. Now these are similar to B cells, but when they encounter a pathogen, they begin to enlarge and multiply. There are two different types of T cells. Killer T cells, which stop the spread of pathogens in the body by releasing toxins that destroy abnormal or infected cells. Helper T cells help to activate B cells and killer T cells to make it so there's more cells able to fight the infection. So if we think about when we talked about blood, is when we get sick, the white blood cells begin to multiply. Helper T cells makes that response happen more quickly, so we have more white blood cells available, so it's easier to attack pathogen and remove them from the body. The final part of the lymphatic system is the lymph nodes. They filter the lymph to remove destroyed cells and move them to the blood to be removed from the body. The two lymph nodes that most people know about are the ones under the jaw on both sides of the trachea. When you get sick, the lymph nodes have to filter more of the destroyed cells, making them work harder, and they also swell up. So we think about, we have lymph nodes here. We also have some in our armpits and down in the groin area. Now we need to address how to take care of the cardiovascular system. The first thing is you need to control what you eat. When you eat large amounts of saturated fats, they can begin to clog arteries, making the heart work harder, which can lead to various diseases. Also limit the amount of sodium consumed. Sodium levels are directly linked to fluid levels. When you consume large amounts of sodium, like in processed foods, your blood volume increases, and that can put more stress on the walls of blood vessels and the heart. You also need to stay at a healthy weight. The higher your weight is, the harder your heart has to work. And earlier in this semester, we talked about all the diseases linked to being overweight or obese. The next thing you can do is exercise, which when combined with a well-balanced diet can help you achieve a healthy weight. This also reduces stress, which will influence your blood pressure and your heart rate. Last, you want to avoid the use of tobacco, alcohol, and illegal drugs. The use of drugs can permanently damage tissue, and in adolescence, it can interfere with the development of organs and tissue. Next, we have a list of problems that you can experience in the cardiovascular system. First, blood pressure. Like mentioned before, when blood pressure is too high, it puts pressure on the walls of blood vessels, which doesn't allow them to stretch and relax as the heart beats, making the heart have to work harder. Second is heart defects. These can be anything from heart murmurs to holes in the heart. A congenital heart defect means it is present at birth. Next, we have cardiovascular disease, which is a collection of a bunch of conditions that can include hypertension, which can come from chronic high blood pressure, heart disease, and then also stroke. Heart murmur. This is a defect in one of the tricuspid valves. Now, we talked about tricuspid valves earlier. So a heart murmur is when one of these flaps is deformed or has failed, which results when the heart pumps. So we think about the heart when the ventricle pumps to circulate blood throughout the body, this one-way valve now has a leak in it. So what happens is when this pumps, some blood will actually flow back up into the atrium. Next, varicose veins. So to explain varicose veins, I first need to explain how blood moves from the legs back to the heart. The heart is not strong enough to fight the high gravity from so far away. So the legs have one-way valves that cause blood to pool. So the heart pumps, blood comes up, and then it comes down and it pools in these one-way valves. If it wasn't for these, every time your heart pumped, blood would go up and blood would come and pool in the feet. A varicose vein is when one of these valves fails. This causes a higher amount of blood to be in one area, increasing the pressure, and it can cause the vein to stretch. This can be dangerous because the vein could eventually rupture. Next is anemia. This is a condition where the blood cannot effectively transport oxygen. This is usually due to an iron deficiency or loss of blood. So monthly menstruating women, men after surgeries, or both genders after bouts of continuous high-intensity exercise can suffer from anemia. To combat this, like mentioned in Chapter 5, increased iron intake can have a large influence. Next is leukemia. Leukemia is a cancer which will affect any of the white blood cells. These cells are abnormal and do not function properly, and this significantly influences the effectiveness of the immune system. It can also lead to an overproduction of abnormal cells, which can decrease the body's ability to create red blood cells and platelets. And finally, hemophilia. This is a condition where the blood will not clot, which will lead to easy bruising and a high risk of excessive blood loss when any cut injury is experienced. Now let's talk about lymphatic system. So immune deficiency. This is when the body can no longer fight off infection. These conditions can be congenital, which means present at birth, or they be contracted through another person. The most common version of this is HIV, which is an immune deficiency that decreases the number of T cells, making it harder to fight off infections. So we think about our T cells, they enlarge and they kill pathogens. As that number goes down, we can't fight off pathogens as well. Now, HIV progresses to AIDS when the T cell count drops below 200, where a healthy level is between 500 and 1500. So as this disease progresses, it makes it so what normally would be considered a simple infection to fight off, like a cold, can be deadly because the body has a lower capacity to kill off pathogens. Then we have Hodgkin's disease or Hodgkin's lymphoma. This is a cancer of the lymphatic system. Then we have tonsillitis. This is when there's infection in the tonsils. Now the tonsils we'll talk about in the next section when we talk about respiratory system. But the tonsils help clean the air that is breathed in through the mouth. When these are infected a lot, they may have to be removed. This usually happens in children more than adults.